This is William Michael of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I'd like to talk briefly about future opportunities that I see being available for Catholic men and women to work as tutors in and through the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. In the summer of last year, so last summer, I announced that I was going to be available for tutoring with students. And within a few weeks, my tutoring schedule was just about filled. Looking at my tutoring schedule today, there's a few more slots, and I don't expect that the students I'm currently working with are going to leave heading into next year. So my schedule is surely going to fill up this upcoming summer and probably remain filled for a long time, God willing, of course. Once my schedule is filled up, my wife is also arranging tutoring sessions, and she's not going to have many slots available either. She has less availability than I do, and she prefers to work with younger children, and that availability is going to be exhausted probably this summer and then remain so for the future. There's going to be an increasing interest in tutoring in the future, especially as the Academy continues to develop and the curriculum fill out and more students enroll. And the opportunity, and notice I'm phrasing this carefully, the opportunity for work as tutors is all but certain. And I'd like to give some advice to any Catholic men or women who might be interested in developing a future, I could say apostolate, maybe career in classical Catholic tutoring. I'd like to give some advice, and I'm going to be very frank and realistic. No nonsense, no blowing smoke in your eyes or anything like that. I'm going to tell you what you can do and would need to do if you were interested in developing an opportunity to, or taking advantage of an opportunity to work as a tutor. First of all, in modern society, technology has blown up the I don't want to use the word traditional because I think of traditional as being much older than many others do. I would say conventional institutions that still are standing but are slowly going to fall apart over time because they're simply obsolete. And I've been explaining this for years now. It's going to be harder and harder over time to justify maintaining schools and colleges because there's simply not going to be a purpose for them. My children now, my son David is 19 years old. He's in his second semester of college, and all of his classes this semester are online. My older kids, two of them in college, they have half of their classes are on campus and half of their classes are online, even though they live on campus. Half of the work they do is online work. And as time goes on, it's obvious that the costs of living on campus for most students, it's different for my kids. They're ROTC cadets, so everything's paid for. But for most students, it's going to become more and more difficult to justify paying the costs of living on campus when you're living on campus to take online classes. It's really quite ridiculous, but it's just as ridiculous to send all of these kids to local schools when they sit in the school and work on the internet. So you can sort of see I hope you can see this this problem that's developing where the costs of these things, not so much for the institutions because our government is nuts and will just continue to pour gazillions of dollars into all these dead things for political purposes, but for the actual consumers, for the students and the parents, it's going to become more and more difficult to justify these expenses. There's not going to be any results produced for the amount of money and time that's invested in these things. That presents us with an opportunity, and Christians are going to choose to either take advantage of that opportunity and seek to glorify God by working intelligently and diligently to seize the opportunity, or Christians are going to choose to try and take the easy path and continue to just seek employment and leave the responsibilities to others to figure out how to do things. Those who choose the way of employment are going to find fewer and fewer opportunities for employment, and they may set themselves up to find no employment. If you're paying attention to the development of artificial intelligence and how that's beginning to influence computer technology and capabilities of computers, you're going to see that this lazy approach to employment is a dead-end road that you can't get off of fast enough. Easy employment is, it will always exist because it's a means of political power. But for those who are conscientious and who don't simply want to hand over their soul or their freedoms for a paycheck, these free and easy career paths that Americans have become accustomed to are going to be diminishing over time, at least conscientious ones that you can pursue with a good conscience, knowing that you're not ripping people off in order to have a career. For example, college professors and administrators understand that their careers are funded by a massive student debt problem and enormous federal funding that really has no output to justify it. They know that. They'll even complain about it when they're complaining about money other people are making, like administrators. But they continue to choose to just live off of this system. Jordan Peterson, in one of his interviews with a professor from MIT, you can find it on YouTube, Jordan Peterson explained that the college, the academic community is like a bunch of people living inside of a whale. There's lots of food because there's all of this meat in the whale's body, but they're only going to be able to eat it for a short period of time. That's how this academic system is in modern America. There's so many people trying to take from it, and it's all leading to a crisis, a giant debt crisis that everyone complains about, but they continue to live off of because they're not conscientious. And this is part of the problem, even in modern Christian society, is that anything is justified when someone needs to make a living. It's almost like the need to get a paycheck justifies doing just about anything. But it's not going to continue forever. So the future is going to be much more independent. Even from my generation to this generation is already incredibly more independent. For example, when I was a kid, if you wanted to play sports, you went to school because the schools had all of the teams, and the teams played each other. You played against other schools and things like that. Schools and sports were united and almost inseparable. If you wanted to play baseball, you had to make the high school baseball team. If you wanted to wrestle, you had to make the wrestling team, and so on. Today, so much athletic activity, so much extracurricular activity has become privatized or separated from the schools. My sons, for example, wrestle, which, the wrestling that they do, the coaching and the training they receive, tournament opportunities that are available, college recruiting, all of these things deal directly with the athletes at the private level, and the school activities are becoming less and less significant. Nobody necessarily cares if you're on a high school wrestling team, because the real contest and the real coaching and the real teaching take place more in private camps and private tournaments and things like that. In basketball, we see it with the whole AAU circuit. In baseball, for example, I play baseball in the spring. Today, there are kids playing baseball year-round because of private baseball leagues and teams and camps and things like that. So athletics, I'm using athletics just as an example of how technology and communication is allowing sports to become privatized and separated from the institutions that they formerly existed in. And that's true of many other areas as well. The same is also true of business itself. It's being separated more and more from the artificial institutions that it formerly depended upon. For example, week by week, I'm referred to and addressed by people who contact me as Dr. Michael, because seeing the work that I do and I could say the influence of the academy in a number of different areas, it's assumed that I must have some kind of high academic degree. And that assumption is the problem. The assumption that someone who's doing something in the world must have some high academic degree is not reality. And there are many people who pursue those high academic degrees because they think that they're necessary to do the influential work, and they're wrong. They're not necessary. In fact, they have nothing to do with it. Mother Teresa did not need a medical license, and she didn't need to graduate from medical school before she could take care of the sick. The saints set examples for us of what the real work looks like. And what many people think is that they have to have the license or the degree or the certification in order to do the work, and that's simply not true, especially today. I am the founder and director of the Classical Liberal Arts Academy, and I have a bachelor's degree in classics and ancient history. And the reason I have a bachelor's degree is because when I was getting started in graduate school, I could see that I had no need of a graduate school degree to do any of the things professionally that I wanted to do, as long as I was willing to manage my own business and take on that responsibility. So these institutions, as people start to wake up, and there are many different voices explaining and proving this in many different industries, but as people realize this, the institutions are going to lose their control of things. It's just like when your middle school teacher told you that your bad behavior was going to go on your permanent record. Once you learned that there's no such thing as a permanent record, you realize that your middle school teacher really had no way of controlling anything except by making up boogeyman stories about secret file folders and things like that. The same is true of these academic institutions. Modern schools and colleges, they operate on this perpetuating of a myth of their necessity among the students, having students imagine that if they don't get these degrees and if they don't finish these programs and get these certificates and licenses, they're not going to be able to find jobs. And to a degree, that's true if the jobs you're looking for are these lazy, careless, entry-level jobs, or if you're looking for these extraordinarily high-paying jobs, like being a licensed physician. But there are very few people who actually need to achieve the things necessary for those positions to enjoy not only a rewarding life, but a conscientious life, a life that allows one to live with a good conscience, earning an honest living without making use of any, dirty money or unjust sources of money and so on. So anyway, with that all being said, the opportunity to be a teacher or a tutor of classical Catholic curriculum is really a matter of young Catholic men and women doing the studies to actually learn the classical Catholic curriculum and then cultivating the skills to be able to serve younger students as tutors. There's no degree or certification required. There's nothing like that. It's simply a matter of doing the studies, gaining the mastery of the content, and then helping others to do the same. And parents who desire their kids to make sufficient progress in their studies to get a significant amount of work done in the years they have available to study, those parents are willing to pay for trusted, skillful tutors to help their children. They're not willing to pay for foolish people. They're not willing to pay for silly people. They're not willing to pay for ignorant people. But if they find trusted Catholics who understand these lessons and can help their children through them, they're willing to pay for that help. And they don't require these artificial licenses and certifications. They simply want help for their children, help even for themselves, because they take these studies seriously and they know that they're dealing with a limited amount of time in their children's education, and they want their children to make significant progress during that window of educational opportunity that parents have before their children reach adulthood and are free to start making their own decisions. Proof of this desire for tutoring can be seen in my own schedule and how quickly it filled up. I don't believe that there's anything special about my tutoring. I don't believe it takes the level of mastery that I have of the classical Catholic studies. I believe it can be done by people who are less experienced in the classical liberal arts than I am, because most of the kids are at entry level and they need help with the basic courses. In fact, I would like to devote myself more to the more difficult work and the higher courses that need to be researched and arranged for study, because that's best for the long-term success of the students. Being able to get into higher and higher studies more and more efficiently is really what I'm concerned with. Secondly, my desire in the future is to personally teach live classes where I can serve more students directly, because I'm not going to be able to serve many students through tutoring, and tutoring is quite simple. So let me explain what the role of a tutor actually is, because this is largely misunderstood today. The Classical Liberal Arts Academy already hosts the curriculum materials, the lessons, the quizzes, the written assignments, the records, and so on. The Academy already has all of the study materials. All someone needs to do to study the classical Catholic curriculum is create an account in the Academy Study Center. It's very, very simple, very affordable. A student can subscribe to a student plan and have access to all of the study materials. A tutor then can assist those students and charge an hourly fee for meeting to help with tutoring and help the student make progress as quickly as possible. Tutoring does not mean teaching. The tutor is not a master to explain the subjects. That's not what tutoring is. The textbooks provide us with the best explanations possible for all of the lessons. Students have to learn to access the content directly from the texts. That's what it really means to learn how to learn. That's the goal of a classical education, to learn how to learn by studying the masters directly. That's the goal of these studies. We're not setting up ourselves as crutches that the students depend on, because once the crutch is removed, the kids are lost. And that's not education, even though that's the norm in almost every school at every level today. We have a full curriculum that's accessible to all students. They have access to textbook lessons. They have access to assessments and so on. And the content is already provided for. The students can work independently. All of their records are maintained by our system. We can work directly with the students to help with grading assignments and quizzes and things like that. So what's left is the role of a tutor. And the tutor is sort of the complement to all of those resources and services that are already available. What I do in my tutoring meetings, first of all, is I develop a personal relationship with the student to provide the student with the support and help of a Catholic adult. That's the first thing that kids need. They need a positive Catholic influence in their life. That's a precious commodity today. It's very difficult to find, if you're a young person, it's very difficult to find a Catholic adult that wants to help you to succeed in your Catholic life. That's the first thing that students need. Someone who can develop a Catholic relationship with a student who is confident in the Catholic faith, comfortable in the Catholic faith, isn't caught up in the gimmicks and worldliness of modern society, is stable, is sober in their disposition, and can give the children a good role model and a source of stability and support in their Catholic life. That's the first, and I would argue that's the most important thing that Catholic students need. And you can say, well, don't they already have that in their parents? And to a degree, yes, they do. But their parents are busy. Their parents have lots of things to do. Their fathers have to work and earn a living and provide for the family. Their mothers have other children to take care of, other responsibilities to take care of. They can't devote themselves undistractedly to education and the work of teaching and helping the children. To have someone come in and provide focused expert help in one important area of the children's lives is very important. That's why I pay for my kids to have a wrestling coach, not because I can't teach them the sport of wrestling. I can, but I simply don't have the time to do so. And I want them to learn the discipline and training of a competitive sport like wrestling. I cannot provide it because of my need to work and provide for the family in general, and therefore I seek help from a specialized expert who can provide for my kids the help that I want them to receive. That's what tutors are for with classical Catholic studies. So even though kids may have the most wonderful parents, and most of my students do have wonderful Catholic parents, the problem is the parents just have other things to do, and they can't devote all of their attention to academics and to their kids' studies. And so they seek help from an outside source to focus on that specific area of weakness and help their children. So the most important thing kids need is just a positive Catholic influence in their life. I learned this early on because I came out of all my academic stuff and I was proud of all my academic achievements and things like that. And I was tutoring a couple of boys, and the mother of these boys came to me one day as I was getting ready to leave, and she said, "Mr. Michael, there's no one like you. There's no one like you." And as I talked to her, I realized that what she really valued in my work as a tutor was not the academic stuff, but it was just the fact that I cared about her sons, and I developed a relationship with her boys. And that, more than anything, was what she was excited about, just to have her sons have a Catholic male influence in their lives because dad's at work. In her case, they were actually divorced, but dad's not around. It's hard for boys to find Catholic men to provide influence in their lives, and that kind of support is really what families need help with. It's what the kids need help with, even more than academic stuff. They need a good Catholic influence in their life, somebody who cares about them and is willing to invest in them to help them. The second thing that kids need is they need help simplifying their tasks so that they can focus on specific things that need to get done. When you open up the Academy website, the first thing you see is just the list of available courses. There are over 100 courses available in the Classical Liberal Arts Academy. That's like being thrown out of a boat into an ocean. It just seems like there's nowhere to start or stop. And I even get emails daily from adults asking, where do I begin? Where do we begin? If we want to pursue a classical Catholic education, looking at this curriculum, where do we even start? It's an overwhelming ocean of content, of lessons and assessments and so on. The kids need for an adult to say, start here, do these 5 tasks. Next week, we'll check in again, and we'll see how you did on these 5 tasks, and we'll update them and add 5 new tasks. The kids need someone to provide them with tasks, just like an employee needs a manager to give specific instructions, or a laborer needs a boss to say, do this, do this, do this, task by task. That's what students need to help them, because they can focus on specific tasks and they can be motivated to complete those tasks by just simple accountability and praise or blame. But they need someone to set out those tasks for them, specific tasks, and give them a planner or a task list to focus on for a short period of time, like 1 week. And then to know that they're going to meet and sort of give an account for how they studied that week. That's what kids need. They need somebody to lay the tasks out for them and to simplify what they need to do. So they can just sit at their desk, look at their planner, and say, okay, task number 1, let's get this done. And everything is simple and objective for them. So the second important need that the kids have is they need someone to lay out their tasks and manage a planner with those tasks, and to do so for them and with them week by week as they go through. This is what I already do. So this is not something that someone needs to invent. I already have a system for doing this. It's already effective. Kids enjoy it. Parents enjoy it. It's easy for me to manage. Tutors simply need to maintain these planners and work with the kids to help them week by week. So that's the second thing. The third thing is that tutors can serve as mediators between the students and the headmaster. That's what the assistants used to do in schools. As I said, I want my focus to be on the most difficult tasks. My expertise I want spent on the hardest studies and the highest students who really need the most expert help. Because of that level of expertise and experience, I don't need to work directly with beginning students. Students don't need that expertise when they're getting started. Tutors can serve beginning students sufficiently and can simply communicate with me when there is a difficult issue that they're not able to help with. And so it allows us to provide more students with access to classical Catholic studies if we work through sort of a hierarchical system where the most experienced teachers are reserved for the highest students and less experienced tutors serve the beginning students. That's how it should be arranged for the sake of efficiency and in order to not just allow as many students to get started as possible, but also to be able to serve students that rise with tutors who are able to continue going with them into higher and higher studies. That's another challenge. Many students get to a certain level and they run out of teachers and they can't advance anymore. We don't want that to happen, and that's why the experienced teachers have to continue to move upwards and to gain more and more expertise in the higher sciences, not just continue to dabble around and trifle with the elementary studies. And I'd like to devote my time to those higher studies. So it allows us to serve more students just by having tutors working as mediators, providing as much help as they can, and then communicating with me or with more advanced tutors when there are things that come up that they need help with. So it allows us to reach a broader student body and to do so in an efficient way, serving students from the very first lessons of the curriculum all the way up through the highest levels of the curriculum. It also allows us to pursue other opportunities we have, like being able to offer our students bachelor's degrees without any of the costs of modern colleges or any of the inconveniences of modern college life. So even though, as I say, certificates and licenses and degrees aren't necessarily required for anything, as long as they remain, recommended at least, there are other ways to provide students with access to degrees, and we can offer those degrees ourselves directly if we had more assistance. So these are the kinds of things that tutors need to do. Tutors need to communicate with the students on behalf of the academy. Tutors need to go between students and more advanced tutors or even me as the headmaster to serve more students. Tutors need to lay out short-term tasks for students to focus on and work on. And most importantly, tutors need to cultivate supportive, encouraging, edifying relationships, Catholic relationships with Catholic students. That's really what a tutor is for. It's like more like the pedagogue in the ancient world who simply accompanied the child through his daily activities and made sure that everything was done rightly, that the child was doing what he was supposed to do, getting through his studies, not getting into trouble, being encouraged to practice good morals, and so on. That's the work of a tutor, and it's available to anyone who is competent enough to gain the trust of parents. And that's the most important factor, because no one is going to hire some weird person who's not trustworthy because he has a lofty academic degree. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Most parents would rather have someone with less, academic credentials but better character, who's able to actually develop a relationship with students, and students enjoy working with the person. That's actually far more important to success in tutoring than any sort of, list of degrees that have been achieved in the past. No one really cares about that, because most of these studies are elementary. We're more concerned with character. So there's a practical and a sort of real-world qualification necessary, which is that you can simply gain the trust and the friendship of parents and their children and work with them as a tutor who they enjoy working with. That's sort of the ultimate test. So those are the things to consider. Now, as far as real-world practical stuff, like how does one make a living doing this? Well, making a living is no easy matter. And I don't think that anybody who thinks they're going to work a few hours a week and charge $300 an hour is realistic. You can hear stuff like that around. You can hear that the average tutor salary today is $75 an hour, but you're nuts if you think that that's what a Christian tutor should look to earn for an hour. I don't even ask anything close to that amount to work with students. Think about it. For the premium student plan that I charge, it's $100 a month for a student. They get 4 weekly meetings. So if you take that $100 monthly payment and divide it by 4 meetings, it's like $25 an hour. But that also includes their enrollment in the academy, which is $25 a month. So really it's only $75 a month divided by 4 meetings, and you're getting down under $20, which is what I made when I was first out of college teaching in private schools. So this idea that you're just going to charge $50 an hour and act like some kind of lawyer or doctor strolling into the tutoring meeting, it's just ridiculous. This kind of work is not worth that kind of money, and Christians shouldn't be asking that kind of money to do this kind of work. The way that you make more money in Christian tutoring is by serving more students, not by raising your rates as if you're some kind of king offering, the cure for cancer to these people. To go over $20 an hour for tutoring, I just think is not realistic. These are parents providing for their own children. You can't have a parent pay $50 for an hour of help for their children. It's just not realistic. I think the number needs to stay closer to $20 an hour. And to make a decent living, you need to serve more students. That's the way to do it. You need to work hard. Your level of effort put into your work needs to justify the salary that you earn. This generation of easy living salaried jobs, we have to realize, is going to end. And we've got to get back to understand the real value of human labor, the real value or the costs of earning a living, and get back to a realistic level of work ethic and the kind of rates that we charge for services we provide. We have to be realistic, or we're simply not going to work. We once had a tree that we wanted removed, and the tree company came and told us that it would cost $400 per tree to have the trees cut down and removed. And that's just ridiculous to have a tree cut down. And so we said no. So they walked away with $0. And this is what most people do today. Because they want to boast about their rates, they would rather have $0 and have no one interested in their services because they simply charge too much, instead of finding out what the market actually judges the work to be worth and letting that determine the prices. That's how prices should be determined. And you can tell what the market thinks is appropriate by offering a price and seeing if people sign up. And when people don't sign up, that doesn't mean that you should go do something else. It means your prices are too high. And you need to learn how to get it done for less money, because that's where the market's at. And that challenge of learning how to do things for less money is the challenge of doing important works responsibly. When we see bishops closing schools because they can't financially operate, that's just a sign that there's no interest in running Catholic schools. That's not a sign that closing schools is necessary. It's just there's no interest in thinking and working to make the schools available for lower tuition so that more families can afford them and the schools can actually stay in business. There's no interest in doing that work, so they just close the schools down and say, oh, well, there's no financial support. And that's not true. There would be financial support, which is why the Protestant schools, which charge much less, stay open. So with tutoring, you've got to learn that Christian work needs to be done at a lower wage because that's reasonable. St. Benedict teaches that in the Rule of St. Benedict. It's work that's necessary, that you should think is important, even if there was no wage. And therefore, to be able to get any wage should be considered a great privilege. That's the way I look at the work. I'm going to do this work no matter what. Praise the Lord if I can earn a living while doing this work and provide for my family, and that will allow me to devote myself entirely to this work. That's really the motivation that I seek. So to actually do the work of a tutor, first of all, you have to master the content of whatever subjects you're going to offer to tutor students in. You don't need degrees, you don't need certificates, you simply need to study the lessons the students are going to be studying. You need to study the lessons the students are going to be studying, develop mastery in those subjects, and then offer to help students climb the same ladder that you yourself have climbed. It's that simple. You simply need to study. One of the benefits of getting involved early while things are still developing is that you have the opportunity to work with me directly while I'm still available, and I can help you through the courses, and then you can gain mastery that allows you to turn around and offer help to others. So that's an opportunity that's probably not going to be around in a few more years, but it's available now if you desire it. So the most important thing you can do is study, because that is the preparation to be a tutor. Another thing to do to get started is just begin doing the work of a tutor. For example, on the Academy Study Center, there are student forums where students post questions. Answer those questions. Start doing the work of a tutor. Help students through lessons. Start practicing that. Have your name on the student forums. When you answer a question, the students can see your name. Start making your name familiar as a helpful tutor that's available to help the children. Start doing the work of a tutor. You have to gain the trust and respect of the parents and students before they're going to actually offer you any financial remuneration for that help. You have to earn that trust. And one way to do it is by doing the studies, and another way is by beginning to do the work of a tutor at no cost to anyone, in order to prove that you can even do it in the first place, because you may not even be able to do it. You may answer a student's question, and what you write and how you write is not even clear and not helpful. And the students may write back and say, "What? What are you talking about? That's more confusing than the lesson." So you've got to prove that you even can help students before you can start talking about taking any money as a tutor. And there are ways to do that. I invite prospective tutors to write articles about classical Catholic education, and I'm happy to post them on the Academy website, where you can start to show that you understand the material and gain the trust of other Catholics for the sake of tutoring. These are the kinds of things that have to get done. You see me making these videos, doing these talks, and all of the resources I produce. I do it to gain the trust of parents and students. That's why I make these talks. I want parents to see that, you know what, this guy here, he talks about these subjects. He seems to be sincere and faithful. That's the kind of guy that I would like to have work with my son in his lessons. That's why I do these things. It's to gain trust with parents, to show them that I'm trustworthy, that I'm serious, that I'm sober-minded, and I can help them give their children the best education possible. I have to do this work first. I don't get paid to do this. I do this work first, and the work that I do is what, in the end, makes me of interest to people who are willing to pay money for skillful help for their children. And you've got to do the same. You've got to start doing the work first to prove that you're worthy of being hired as a tutor. And there are ways for you to do that, as I explained. So I would recommend you get started with that. There are also realistic character issues that you have to learn to deal with. When we study rhetoric. When we study rhetoric, we learn that there are three means by which we influence others, three persuasive appeals. One is logos. One is being smart, having good arguments, being able to explain things well, give good illustrations and examples. That's all logos. That's all reasoning. But there's also two others, pathos and ethos. Ethos is the appeal of a person's character. The appeal of a person's character. So when you look at a school teacher, or if you had a school teacher when you were young that was annoying or ugly or weird or goofy, and all the students laughed at them and made fun of them behind their backs, that person is not fit to be a teacher, because that person does not have the persuasive appeal of ethos in the lives of those kids. That person is not able to command the respect of the students and teach those children. Now, sometimes teachers can make up for a lack of ethos by extraordinary intelligence. But again, that's for the students to decide, not for a teacher to assume of himself. So you've got to develop your character in order to become a teacher. You've got to be liked by students. You can think that that's vain, but we're dealing with children in education. Of course, their judgments are immature. They're children, but that's who teachers and tutors work with. They work with children who make immature judgments, and yet those judgments are real judgments in that time of their lives. And we've got to be able to impress them, even in their immature judgments, to gain their respect, to gain their attention, to work with them, so that when they do mature, we can continue to work with them and lead them into higher and higher studies. That's why, a mother will offer a child a piece of candy or a cookie or a cupcake to motivate them, because that's what motivates children. And to be a tutor, you've got to take into consideration the persuasive appeals in the life of a child and see that you actually possess them. One of them, like I said, logos, is the influence of our actual teaching ability, our actual speaking, our actual explaining things, our actual illustration of things, and so on. Another one is the appeal of our character, whether the kids actually like us. That's an important factor. And third, pathos is the ability to move the emotions, to influence the emotions or the passions of the children and urge them on and motivate them to do good things. It takes a special person to be a tutor or a teacher, not just somebody who's interested in playing with books or someone who's looking for a job. You have to actually be able to influence students in a positive way. And the only way to find out if you can do that, which you shouldn't assume that you can do, the only way to find out if you can do that is to start doing it and see if you actually can. And until you prove that you can give up any hope of getting paid first for someone else to pay for your trial. Rather, you should prove yourself and then make yourself desirable to parents who will seek out your assistance for their children. And like I said, there are ways for you to start doing this immediately. So if you're interested in tutoring, this is the course that I would recommend. Start studying. Prove yourself an exemplary student. Advance in these courses beyond the level where younger students have reached. Prove yourself to be a model student. Prove that you're able to learn the things that you claim you're going to help others to learn. Begin helping other people. Begin helping other students. Begin working to explain things. Begin acting like a tutor and doing the work of a tutor before you try to start making money as a tutor. That's backwards. Start doing the works of a tutor. And as I said, if you do these things and you find that you actually can do the work of a tutor, like you see students responding favorably to your answers to their questions on the forums, you see positive comments when you make a video or you do a talk or you write an article, then you can begin to take courage and become confident that you actually can do the work of a tutor. But until you've proven that you can, thinking that you're going to start by making money is just childish. And yet that's what most Christians do today. They think that before they learn and prove they can do something, they should immediately start getting paid to try or to learn on the job, which is just fantasy world. So if you'd like to be a tutor, start doing the work of a tutor. Study, help others, prove yourself to be able to not only lead yourself through your studies because you're your own tutor, but prove that you can also help others through their studies. And that work is available for you to begin immediately. Realize that the Classical Liberal Arts Academy will provide you with all of the study materials that your students need, will provide you with support as a tutor so that you're able to help others and you're able to get help yourself. And as the curriculum continues to fill out, you'll be able as a tutor to offer students more and more. And as long as you're studying and proving yourself reliable, I believe that Catholic parents will seek out such tutors and support them because they desperately need help. And that help is very difficult to find in this generation. So that's my advice. And again, if you think that an easier way is going to exist, like you're going to start charging before you do, the market for tutoring at this private level is going to be too competitive because everyone has access. Every good student can turn around and become a tutor. And if you think you're going to take some lazy, easy way into it and charge a lot of money before you've developed any skill, you're simply not going to last because the market's going to be too competitive for tutors. You have to learn to operate affordably and efficiently. You have to provide more value than you ask payment for, or you're simply not going to be able to last in an increasingly competitive online market. I would also advise you to consider, even though this is an online study program that hosts all of the study materials, I would advise you to consider your local geographical area as a place to focus. Even if you're working with students online, you have an advantage over others in that you're in a place that they're not. And so your geographical area, your parish, your diocese, those are good starting points for you to focus on finding students that you can help, promoting the classical liberal arts among kids that you have the attention of, and talking to other parents about classical Catholic studies, and developing a local student body that you can help work with. That's how the CLA started for me in the beginning, and you have an advantage, like I said. You have an advantage in that you're there and other people online are not there. And many parents would welcome an in-person local tutoring experience if the tutor was a trustworthy, influential, effective tutor. So consider local activities and serving as a tutor for local students. Now, when tutors begin to establish themselves, and I begin to notice that there are some Catholics interested in being tutors who I think can do it, I'll help to promote your work in tutoring. I'll create a page on the Academy website that lists tutors that I recommend as people who I've worked with, who I've seen study in the Academy, who I believe can help Catholic children. So I'll help with promoting tutoring and things like that, but I'm not going to promote anyone until I'm sure that they can actually tutor effectively. And so if you're interested, you've got a lot of work to do. The good thing about this is that it's in your control. You don't have to sit there wondering if there are going to be jobs available or wondering what the market's going to do. There's always going to be demand for tutoring. The problem is that there are no tutors. That's the problem. And parents will adjust their budgets. Parents will commit more money to tutoring if there are quality tutors available. So don't judge the way things appear right now, because one of the reasons parents don't spend money on tutors is because there aren't good tutors. But when there are good tutors, and parents realize that if I spend $100 a month, I provide my child with access to this help that allows him to move efficiently through this challenging course of Christian studies, they'll put that money on the table once they're confident that the tutors are effective. So that's what I'd like to say about tutoring. If you're interested, study. If you're interested, start doing the work of a tutor. And you'll see as time goes on, the students' responses, the parents' responses will begin to show you that you're effective as a tutor. And when you begin to see those signs, then you'll know it's worth taking the next step and beginning to make yourself available for hire as a tutor. I'm always available to help anyone who is interested in this. I very much desire to see tutors develop and rise up over time in the academy, and I'll do everything that I can to help you because, like I said, as much as I love tutoring students and I intend to continue tutoring students, it's necessary for me to continue moving into the higher arts and sciences and making sure that the program continues to grow upwards so that we can serve the advanced students when they get through beginning studies and are then looking for help with the next level. I have to make sure they have that next level waiting for them. So I'd like to make that my focus. If you're interested in this, start studying, start doing the work of tutors, study the book, Understanding Classical Catholic Education, work through the curriculum as diligently as you can, make progress in the courses you're interested in tutoring students in, and feel free to send along any questions you have to me because I'm happy to help. I hope that's helpful. God bless.